Okay, so I needed one more. So now, right? So I was saying like how the government is closing in on everything, right? So it's getting crazy out here. So like a lot of the brothers here in Philadelphia, see, this is what you need to understand. Do you know how many brothers, especially brothers of religion, give me a hardened face when I walk around Philadelphia? I've counted maybe 4 or 5 hard faces alone, just yesterday alone. You know what I'm saying? So it's multiple people that don't like the truth. It's a lot of people, not only here in Philadelphia, but in all across the United States that don't like the truth. You know what I'm saying? This is what a lot of you understand. It's many men, and we're not even getting to the females because the females they can't. Women just can't stand the truth in general. But let me give you an example what the government is doing right now. And this is something that we all know about. Let's go to this is an example. Let's go to Maccabees. Okay, Maccabees chapter 6. This is in the Apocrypha. Maccabees chapter 6, 5 and 6. The altar was filled with profane things, which the law forbiddeth. The law of what? The law of Moses. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days, or ancient feasts, or ancient fasts, or to profess himself at all to be an Israelite, to profess himself at all to be a Jew, or a Yahudim, a Yahuda, a Jew. Because the word that Jew is bastardized tongue, and it shouldn't be Jew. It actually should be a Yahuda. So every black man, not well, just about every black man here in Philadelphia is a Yahuda. But yet we take upon the customs of the other nations. We're uncircumcised in the heart and mind. You already know who you are according to the scriptures. All of you black men, right? And it says here, to profess himself at all to be a Jew. So here it is here, the true name is a Yahudim. You are a Yahudim, plural. The YM is plural. Here you are a Yahudim, named after the Father Yah. And you all take upon the customs of the other nations. Right? This was what happened back in the time of Christ. We had a lot of Negroes of all the tribes. They were being called Gentiles. They weren't true Gentiles. They weren't Gentiles like the Romans, but they were being called Gentiles because they were taking upon the customs of the Romans. Right? So there were black people that actually were of the Roman army. They were professed Roman because not that they were of the Roman bloodline or Roman descent. They weren't of Caucasian descent. But they were called Roman because they were of the customs of Roman, because they were Roman citizens. Right? Now, I also mentioned that America is becoming modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, I'm about to explain something to you all, and I want you to pay very, very, very close attention to what I'm about to say to you all. Why is it so dangerous? Now, there's nothing that we're going to be able to do to stop the rise of homosexuality. There's nothing that anybody can do about it. Right? Why? Because all of these things must take place. Why? So Christ can bring his judgment. Now, let me explain to you why it's so dangerous. Why America being modern day Sodom and Gomorrah is so dangerous. I'm going to explain to you why. Because 2 men cannot have a child. 2 women cannot have a child. Now, it's not only that case, but we have in underground laboratories all of these things going on with human DNA. Human DNA is being mixed with all types of animal DNA. Now, there are horrific creatures that are being hidden in underground laboratories that none of you know about yet. And when you see these creatures, because these creatures don't have souls, when you do see these creatures and they come to the surface during the trouble, these creatures will be possessed with demons. That's where they get all of these alien movies from, and all of these movies where you see these creatures, because these creatures were actually constructs of the splicings of all types of DNAs. And because they're man-made, clinic-made, because they're laboratory-made, they don't have souls because they didn't come from Yahuwah. They're abominations. So they're empty vessels that are waiting to be inhabited by devils. So all of that, the bestiality, with the homosexuality, all of that has something to do with the changing of the DNA. This is modern day Sodom and Gomorrah, because the angels, now, I'm going to get into that. First, let's go to Matthew 24. What does all of this have to do with what I just said? Just listen carefully, because it came to me, okay? Let's go to Matthew chapter 24, verse 37 and 39. Matthew chapter 24, verse 37 through 39. King James Version. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. As the days of Noah. Matthew chapter 24, 37 through 39. And Christ is going to say, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also be the coming of the Son of Man. So, this will actually be before he returns, but this is going to be the reason why he returns. I want you to pay attention. Because many of you want to know when Christ is going to return. Many of you don't believe that Elohim is returning. Now, we don't know the day. We don't know the week. Okay? We don't know the hour. We know it's going to be on a Shabbat. Which Shabbat? We're all completely clueless. It will be a Shabbat. Why? Because that's when he makes his grand entrance, on the Shabbat. What Shabbat? Nobody knows the day or the hour. Right? But these things are going to take place right before he returns. It says, as the days of Noah. So, I'm going to give you all a great explanation. Okay? And this all has something to do with this message. Alright? In fact, it's going to come together like cinder blocks. I just need you all to pay close attention. For as in the days that were before the flood, prior to the flood. For as in the days that were before or prior to the flood. Now, if you all don't believe in the flood, all you have to do is do your research. The flood was accounted for from all nations all across the four corners of the planet. Certain museums have books that account for the flood, not only being in one part of the land, but there's evidence, there's science. Since you all want to confirm that, it should be the opposite way. You're supposed to confirm science with the scriptures. But since you all like to confirm the scriptures with science, all you have to do is research it for yourself. The flood was accounted all across. There are people that have accounted the flood all across the planet back in those days. Okay? So, it says here, before the flood, they were eating, drinking, marrying, giving in marriage. So they were eating, drinking, having sex, right? Everything was just, not only were they eating, drinking, and having sex, but they were also ignoring Noah. Remember, Noah was the one who was building the ark. The whole time he was building the ark, he was also preaching. He was trying to explain to people that a flood was coming, that a horrific catastrophe was coming. All the people had to do, listen carefully, right? The people during the time of Noah, they only had to do one thing. All they had to do was believe and then get on the boat. That was it. All they had to do was believe what Noah was saying and then get on the ark. And the crazy thing about it is, even though many of them did believe, but because it wasn't a cool thing to do, because of what people may think, see, that's the problem with many of you. You're concerned about with your husbands, your wives, your friends, your colleagues, those of you who are in the same religion as you, those of you who are in the same clique or congregation as you. You're constantly concerned about what they think. It's going to be a very hot day for you, return of Christ. Temperatures like you never imagined. And when I said that some of Yah's servants are going to deal with you, I'm not talking about human servants. So I'm not saying like Yah's going to use me to deal with somebody in particular, or use that man to deal with something. I'm talking about he's going to send reapers. He's going to send angels. Because us as his servants, we're supposed to be nonviolent, just as long as don't nobody put their hands on me. My objective is to be nonviolent. As long as I don't feel as though my life is in risk or anything of that nature, or for sure at absolute, as long as I don't feel a threat to my family, then it is lawful for me to be absolutely nonviolent. Live peaceably with every man if possible. So when I'm saying a lot of you are going to get touched, I'm talking about by his reaper. He's going to have, it's happening now. He's sending angels after niggas now. After Negroes now. That's what he's doing. Many of you just think it's coincidence, right? Brother come out to jail and gets, but the government did that. Yeah, I understand that, but who do you think? Christ gives permission to kill. Don't you understand that? What makes you think a leaf can't fall off a tree 3-4 seconds away from you without Christ having something to do with it? Right? So, our forefathers were not listening to Noah as you're not listening to me. And you were drinking, marrying, and banging everybody. All the men were banging all the women, all the women were banging all the men. Probably, I'm sure you may even had homosexuality back then. Matter of fact, you most likely did. Well, I don't want to jump into that because maybe the angels brought that into effect. But it said that until the day that Noah entered the ark. So none of y'all listen. None of your forefathers listen, just as you all don't listen today. And knew not until the flood came and took them all away. There's going to be another flood. Not an actual flood, but there's going to be another apocalypse. Because there's an apocalypse at the end of every dispensation, at the end of every cycle, at the end of every age. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. See, Christ is going to bring that drama, smoke that none of you can ever imagine. The other nations, you are all in trouble too. Many of you are going to die by the billions. Billions. Okay? Now, so, let's go to Genesis. Chapter 6. What were the days of Noah? I'm going to get to the point because I want you all to understand how dangerous homosexuality is in dealing with DNA. I want y'all to understand this. Genesis chapter 6. Let's start from the beginning. Genesis chapter, remember what Christ said. It's going to be as the days of Noah, before the flood. Genesis chapter 6. Let's start from the beginning. Now, for many of you who think that this wasn't talking about actual angels from heaven, see, this is the stuff that a lot of people like to mock. And to my black sisters, I love y'all, right? But you all are very closed-minded and very carnal and very worldly. And you need to stop meddling in so many people's business. Stop worrying about so many other people's affairs. Worry about your own husbands. Stop being envious of other wives and their families and their men and their husbands. Stop worrying about all these Gucci bags and Fendis and all of these hairs, and wear your beautiful hair, whether it be short or not. And become a wholesome woman. I advise you all, if you have dresses, put on a dress. Have your daughters wear dresses as well. That's my advice. Same as it was Paul's advice, to dress in modest apparel. But at the end of the day, I'm not the man of you all household. But you all need to become more spiritual. And to some of you, my black sisters, to some of your defense, it's not only your fault, because your men are carnal and your men don't lead the household. And he doesn't put his foot down and say, listen here. He doesn't call family councils. Is my household perfect? No, my household is not perfect. Because my wife, she can be, a little something sometime. My wife is from the Caribbean. For the most part, though, she honors me. I'm going to just keep, I'm going to be honest with her. I really don't have any problems with my wife, to be honest with you, unless she catch me with some flip-flop. You know what I mean? Female number or something like that. Other than that, I really don't. If it wasn't for that, my wife would be so pleasant and so willing all the time. It's only then when she has an issue. But then still, she wears her dresses and she wears her hair. You know what I'm saying? And for the most part, she's a very pleasant woman, and she's by my side. And one thing that I do like about my wife is that she doesn't try to edge me on to compete with other men. That's the best thing about her, because she's that confident in me, where she doesn't need me. She doesn't need to feel a certain type of way about me based upon what I am in comparison to another man. Women, a lot of you women out there have that very evil habit. And you're going to get your man hurt, or you're going to cause him to hurt another man. I've seen, and that's specifically to my cousin. You know who I'm talking about. Y'all need to check that. Okay? Do not give your strength over to a woman. But there are many men that I see that do that. But to you over there in Pittsburgh, you know who I'm talking about. Okay? Now, let's go to Genesis 6 and let's read. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the earth. Who? Men. M-E-N. Ordinary men with flesh and blood, like me and the rest of you Negroes. And daughters were born unto them. So the men were having sex with women, and they were having women, daughters, and men daughters too. But there's a reason why they mention daughters here. Why? Because the sons of God. See, it's talking about angels. They separate. Sometimes we just need to use our common effing sense. Stop letting the 501c3 and white theologians, white theologists teach us. Because I'm telling you, you're going to head your head in for the hellfire by allowing that to happen. And I know Islam don't believe this, because it's a carnal religion. You don't believe in things that are spiritual. It says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. That the sons of God saw that the sons of God, yeah, we're sons of God, but that's not what this is referring to. This is talking about the watchers, the heavenly beings that were sent to watch and keep an eye on the children of men. And they left their natural estate. They left the realm, their realm where they were to be unseen and out of the way, to do what? And they saw that the daughters of men, well, if it was, listen, use your common sense and read the text. That the sons of God saw the daughters of men. That's not, why didn't it say that the men saw the men? It's taught, the men, the regular men had already said they began to multiply on the face of the earth. So humanity had already begun to multiply on the face of the earth, and they was having children. The book of Enoch explains about the watchers. The book of Enoch is the word. But then it says, then the sons of God saw the daughters of men. Read it in text. Saw the daughters of men that they were fair. They were beautiful. You black women are beautiful. And they took them wives of all which they chose. So they took them. They took the P-U-S-S-Y. They didn't go, the angels didn't go down there and say, hey, you want to have sex with me? No. They took it, right? Of all which they chose. They did what they wanted to do with y'all, right? And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man. Why would he say that? Because if they were multiplying, y'all ain't had no problem with that. Y'all ain't had no problem. And it was like Bam Bam, the Flintstones back then. Hit a broad upside the head, throw her over your shoulder, take her and marry her. You bang her, you married her. She's yours. Then when you're done with her, you go get another one. You have 4, 5, 6 of them. That wasn't the issue then. None of that was in the play. Right? But it was something happened with the DNA. See, there was a DNA problem. And Yah said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So now nobody's going to live past 120 years now. Nobody does that really today. I think maybe you have 1 or 2 strands throughout the courses of history. But for the most part, you give up your ghost by the age of 120. I don't know if anyone's lived past. I know I've seen 114, 15, 16. I haven't seen 120 yet. And I've even had a case that somebody that did reach 120 suddenly disappeared. You can research it yourself. So that's between, I don't know nothing about that. I wasn't there. But I've heard of an account of that. 120 is the break. That's the limit right there. Right? There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. These were not ordinary men. These were half angelic, half watchers, and half humans. It's all you have to do is read the text, but that's foolishness, and it's stupid, and it's corny. Now, you all don't believe that these things are not in this manner, and Yah is not going to destroy the world by water, but by fire. And Yah saw the wickedness of man, which was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Why? Because the watchers, the fallen angels, were wicked. That's the reason why the hearts and the minds of everybody who after that were only evil perpetually. Which is the reason why we have an evil seed in us today. Not all of us, but a lot of us. It's not just the other nations, it's also 75% of you black people. Or 65%. But it's worse than that even. But that's a different story. So, and then Yah said, I regret and it repented Yahuwah, meaning he regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And Yahuwah said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth. How did he do it? With the flood. Both man and beast and creeping thing and the fowls of the air, for it had repented me that I had made them. So both man and beast and creeping thing, because the angels, they were undergoing bestiality too. They were having sex with bestiality too. That's how you had abominations back then too. That's where a lot of reptiles came from. But Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahuwah. Now remind you, only 8 people were intelligent enough to get on the ark. Noah and 7 other people. And then as you read on, then he talks about the flood. So, what the angels did was they came down here and they disrupt, because it's in verse 1 it says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto men, not just daughters, but sons also. But they said daughters here. Why? Because the watchers, they came down and they raped the daughters. They took the PUSSI from the daughters. Right? Said they did with them as they chose. Right? So that's basically what's going on. That's what happened. Now, as these angelic beings came and did what they did, they started disrupting the DNA. So, today, here in America, we got a lot of things going on in underground laboratories. There's a lot of disruption of the DNA. And homosexuality and bestiality and not wanting to be called him and her has a lot to do with that. Okay? Now, don't love Philadelphia, for those of you who are in Philadelphia. And before you all want to jump on me, roll on me, put hands and feet on me, let me explain that. I love Philadelphia, but I don't love Philadelphia. And I'll explain. For those of you who are in Detroit, don't love Detroit. For those of you in Chicago, don't love Chicago. For those of you in New York, don't love New York. For those of you in Los Angeles, don't love Los Angeles. For those of you in Hollywood, you sure bet not love Hollywood. For those of you in San Francisco, you sure bet not love San Francisco. For those of you who are in Atlanta, you sure not love Atlanta. Because there's a vicious earthquake coming to Atlanta. It's going to crack right through it. It's going to crack Atlanta a half. And Hollywood is in trouble too. Hollywood will be in great despair. And those of you who ride with Hollywood, who making all this money, stars and fame, yeah, keep it up. So basically what I mean is, I walk around this city, and a lot of people, they think I'm weird, but I see everything like how Neo saw things in the movie The Matrix. Everything just doesn't even seem real to me, because I'm in a different mind frame. James 4:4. James 4:4. You adulterous people. He's not talking about being physically adulterous. Okay? Not saying that that's a good thing. Because I don't want people to throw cans and paper cups at me like I'm a bad comedian on stage. To be physically adulterous is bad, but that's also spiritual. But here he's talking about you adulterous people, you people that love the world, you people that follow the customs of the other nations. Do you not know that friendship with the world is hostility with Elohim? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of this world makes himself an enemy of Christ. And you all don't fear Christ. You don't take Christ seriously at all. That's okay. That's okay. Many of you kick against the pricks. It's all right. 1 John, let me finish this with 1 John chapter 2. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but of the world. And the world passes away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of Elohim abides forever. Little children, it is the last time, meaning we're in the end. And as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now there are many Antichrists. Those of you who have not trusted in Yahushua HaMashiach, and you don't have the mark of his mark on your forehead. Whereby we know that is the last time. Why? Because there's a falling away. To fall away means the disbelief of Christ. That's what the fall away means. Not nothing else that whatever your bull crap congregation leader had spoken. It means to fall away from the trust in Yahushua HaMashiach. To get that to misinterpret that is dangerous. And it says, they went out from us. Who? Certain black people went out from the truth. But they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would no doubt have continued with us. But they went out, that they might be made manifest, that they were not of all of us. Many of you black people, you are not in the fold. You do not have the mark of Christ on your forehead. Now this is a warning to all of you. All of you who follow the customs of the other nations. You got it coming. I'm telling y'all now. But y'all so wrapped up in what's cool. You so wrapped up. Your heart is hardened. Because those of you who are stubborn, your heart is actually being hardened by Christ. When you harden your heart, he hardens it further to make sure that you become a vessel of destruction.